Good morning on this Epiphany Sunday. Our text is from 2 Corinthians chapter 4 through chapter 5:10, beginning at the 13th verse of chapter 4. But just as we have the same spirit of faith, that is in accordance with Scripture, I believed, and so I spoke, we also believe, and therefore we also speak, because we know that the one who raised Jesus will also raise us with Jesus, and will present us with you in his presence. Indeed, everything is for your sake, so that grace, when it has extended to more and more people, may increase thanksgiving to the glory of God. So we do not lose heart, even though our outer nature is wasting away. Our inner nature is being renewed day by day. For our slight momentary affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all measurings, because we look not at what can be seen, but at what cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what cannot be seen is eternal. For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this tent we groan, longing to be further clothed with our heavenly dwelling. For surely when we have been clothed in what we will not be found naked. For while we are in this tent, we groan under our burden, because we wish not to be unclothed, but to be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. The one who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a down payment. So we are always confident, even though we know that while we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. For we walk by faith, not by sight. Yes, we do have confidence, and we would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. So whether we are at home or away, we make it our aim to be pleasing to the Lord. For all of us must appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each may receive due recompense for actions done in the body, whether good or evil. Here ends the reading from Paul's second letter to the church at Corinth. May God grant God's blessing this day. Amen.
With the new year, there's always a forward-looking mindset. That's what makes the new year so interesting. What will happen, and will I be prepared for it? How many of you remember the old Coke commercial? It's the real thing. Coke is. Well, this morning, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the true, real thing, which actually is a way for us to do some forward thinking. In the book, The Polar Express, a boy who has his doubts boards a magical train on Christmas Eve, which is headed for the North Pole. As the train ascends a particularly steep hill, the boy, a girl, and the conductor are climbing from the top of the engine down into the coal car. The conductor is telling them to watch for ice. When the boy slips, the conductor grabs him just in time and swings him back on board, which reminds the conductor of his first trip on the Polar Express. As they make their way back in, they talk about what it really means to believe. The conductor says, years ago, on my first Christmas Eve run, I was up on the roof making my rounds when I slipped on the ice myself. I reached out for a hand iron, but it broke off. I slid and fell, and yet I did not fall off this train. The girl asked, someone saved you? To which the conductor replies, or something, and she perks up, an angel? To which the conductor gives a ponderous response, maybe, but he said it with the conviction of a yes. The boy who's been observing the conversation asks, wait. What did he look like? Did you see him? The conductor then teaches a great lesson when he says, no, sir. Sometimes seeing is believing, and sometimes the most real things in the world are the things we cannot see. Sometimes the most real things in the world are the things we cannot see. That's pretty profound. So often in life, we find ourselves with the reality that it's a struggle to trust in the unseen. But when your life is out of control and you don't see a way out, you need to depend on the things you cannot see. Our text this morning from 2 Corinthians 4 points this out. For our slight momentary affliction is producing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all measure, because we look not at what can be seen, but at what cannot be seen. For what can be seen is temporary, but what cannot be seen is eternal. Think about that for a moment. But what cannot be seen is eternal. The Corinthian church was undergoing struggles. Paul's focus is not on the afflictions or the troubles he can see. His focus is on the glory he cannot see. In the same way, if you want the confidence to move forward in your times of need, learn to first of all see the unseen. I realize it sounds paradoxical to see what you cannot see, but that is precisely what Paul is saying we need to do. It is, in fact, the eternal perspective of things. It is the eternal as opposed to the temporal. The temporal is just that, temporary. That's what our text says. We live for the eternal. In the midst of their struggles, the Corinthians needed to adjust to trusting in that which is unseen, Christ. Look to the invisible realities. Fix your attention not on your temporary situation, but on the eternal glory that we have with Jesus Christ. Paul's use of the word translated 4 times as seen is rather significant. It's the word blepo. While it does mean to see with the eyes, it has a deeper meaning. It also means to discern or perceive. When you explain something to someone who is blind and they get it, they might say, oh, I see. They don't see with their eyes, but they see with their mind and their hearts. They understand. There is a concentration on the real point rather than a casual understanding. I really see it. It makes sense, and I know it. Researchers have something similar that they call the quiet eye. It's the focus that elite athletes have, an enhanced visual perception that allows the athlete to eliminate all distractions. Curiously, quiet eye appears to be particularly important at times of stress, preventing the athlete from choking at moments of high pressure. Don Mattingly was a great hitter and first baseman for the New York Yankees, and he was also manager for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He once said that when he was in a hitting rhythm, he could actually see the seams on a baseball as the pitcher delivered the ball. It was in some respects like slow motion, but more importantly, it was a serious concentration of what was important in the moment. Kinesiologist Dr. Joan Vickers began to suspect the secret of extraordinary performance lay in the way that elite athletes see the world. She hooked a group of professional golfers up to a device that precisely monitored their eye movements as they putted. She found an intriguing correlation. The better the player, the longer and the steadier their gaze on the ball just before and then during their strike. Novices, by contrast, tended to shift their focus between different areas of the scene for shorter periods of time. Most people have heard the advice to keep your eye on the ball, but Vicker's research suggested something more intricate. The precise duration of the gaze correlates with an objective measure of sporting success. Now, that's the kind of focus you need, especially in times of stress. Don't focus on the trouble, focus on the triumph ahead. Fix your attention on the eternal glory beyond your temporary troubles. See with discernment what is really important. See the unseen, who is with you. The second way we see the real thing is when we see our future body. As our present body ages and decays, look forward to your glorious resurrection body. Anticipate the building that will replace the tent in which you now live. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 5, 1 through 5, and you have it in your bulletin, "For we know that if the tent that is our earthly home is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this tent we groan, longing to put on our heavenly dwelling, if indeed by putting it on we may not be found naked. For while we are still in this tent, we groan, being burdened, not that we would be unclothed, but that we would be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. He who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. God has given every believer His Holy Spirit as the down payment or first installment of our new bodies to come. He guarantees that every believer will be raised from the dead. The tent of their old bodies will be exchanged for the building of their new bodies. I love the contrast here. The old body is like a tent. The new body is like a building. We groan in this flimsy old body, which is easily torn by the winds of adversity, but we will glory in the new body God will give us, which will last forever. If you've ever gone tent camping in a storm, you get the picture. You can't wait to get out of the mud, tear down that old tent, and find permanent shelter somewhere. Well, that's the way it will be for every believer, for you if you have trusted Christ with your life. After you have weathered the storms of this life, God will tear down the flimsy old tent of your old body and replace it with an eternal, beautiful building of your new body, which will never show any signs of weakness or decay. On September 17th, 2002, a U.S. Navy warship plucked Richard Van Pham, a 62-year-old Vietnamese immigrant, from the waters off Costa Rica. He was 2,500 miles from his home in Long Beach, California, where he began what he thought would be a 25-mile trek to Catalina Island. Van Pham had drifted in his disabled 26-foot sailboat Seabreeze for nearly 4 months before being spotted by a U.S. Navy plane doing drug traffic reconnaissance. Limited to a diet of fish, sea turtle, seagulls, and rainwater, Van Pham lost 40 pounds in the ordeal, but was in relatively good health when the USS McCluskey plucked him from the blue waters of the Pacific. Pham, a refugee from Vietnam, who came to the United States in 1976, was never reported missing because he told his rescuers that he had no family and had been living aboard his ship at Long Beach Harbor. Each day he drifted at sea. Van Pham said he looked for any sign of life, any sign of land. "I see nothing," he said. "Then one day I see a plane. I know I'm close to people. They tip their wings to say hello. 2 hours later, a ship comes to my boat. I'm very, very happy." But leaving the sea breeze was bittersweet for Van Pham. When Navy officials determined they were unable to fix the sailboat, Van Pham reluctantly approved crew members setting fire to the 26-foot boat that had carried him so many miles and been his earthly home. It sank in 8,700 feet of water. He waved goodbye to his sailboat, said Petty Officer 3rd Class Joseph Slate of the McCluskey. He was upset and said he was going to miss it. That's a little what it's going to be like when we die and Jesus comes to rescue us. It will be a bittersweet experience as we say goodbye to the flimsy earthly vessel we have grown to love. At the same time, we will celebrate Jesus transferring us to a strong battleship where we will be safe forever in our heavenly harbor. Look forward to that day when you weather the storms of this life. If you want the confidence to move forward in times of trouble, see the unseen. Specifically, see your future body. Then thirdly, focus on heaven, our future home, where Jesus lives. Anticipate being with him forever. Despite his troubles, Paul finds courage by looking to the unseen realities of his future body and his future home. That is to say, he gains confidence and firmness of purpose in the face of danger or testing. Now, he cannot see those realities with his physical eyes. No, he sees his future with eyes of faith. And that's what you must do if you want the confidence to move forward in times of trouble. Walk towards your future with the eyes of faith. Even though you don't see it now, look forward to your heavenly home. A home where you will be with Jesus forever. In a Bible study entitled, "It Had to Be a Monday," Jill Briscoe writes about the death of a Christian friend. During the funeral visitation, the deceased man's wife and his sister stood by the casket, greeting people. The sister kept motioning to her brother's body, saying to each person who came to greet her, "There he is. There he is." After some time, when the wife could stand it no longer, she turned to her sister-in-law and in love said, "If I believed there he is, I would be miserable." Then she added, "Do you know what enables me to get through this day? What gets me through is that I know the truth. There he isn't. He is at home with the Lord." And that's what kept her going. It will keep you going as well. Finally, see your future. See your future reward. Anticipate Jesus telling you, "Well done." Look forward to his praise and approval when you stand before him in heaven. So if you want the confidence to move forward in times of trouble, look forward to that reward and live your life to please the Lord. Marshall Shelley, director of a Doctor of Ministry program at Denver Seminary, talks about giving his wife a terrific anniversary gift early in their marriage, a rain gauge. At least he thought it was terrific. Susan, after all, is a farmer's daughter and keeps close watch on the weather. Marshall envisioned her delight and nostalgia while tracking their backyard precipitation and congratulated himself on his creativity. Well, Susan was not impressed. A rain gauge for our anniversary? The rain gauge is now a family joke, a classic example of a gift enjoyed by the giver, but not the receiver. Sometimes believers give God something that makes them feel good, but it may not be what God desires from us. We may be giving God a rain gauge. Instead, focus on what pleases Him, on what He enjoys, and watch how He gives you what you need. The unseen becomes seen because He chooses to bless us with it. Our focus may be on the future, but don't forget that in the present, He chooses to care for us. Tracy is one of the worship leaders of her church. And one Sunday, as she sat at the piano, she talked about the difficult week she'd just been through. It was chaotic. A mess of petty crisis on top of a rash of minor accidents, all mixed up in a soup can of crazy business. It had left her weary and cranky. She got up one Sunday to lead worship and felt spent, with nothing more to give. Then she had walked into the living room and saw the big picture window covered with scrawl. Using a crayon, her 8-year-old daughter, Abrina, had scribbled something across the picture window, top to bottom and side to side. At first, it seemed like one mess for Tracy to clean up. Then she saw what Brina had written. Love, joy, peace, patience, kind niece, good niece, faithful niece, gentle niece, and self-control, and Brina's delightful spelling. Tracy stopped, drank it in. Her heart flooded with light. It was exactly the reminder she needed, the gift of the fruit of the Spirit that arises, not by our circumstances, but by Christ within us. The unseen blessing her. Then Tracy noticed one more thing. Brina had written at the edge of the window, love one another. Only Brina in her creative spelling had written love one another. W-O-N. Love one another. When you've had a week like Tracy, don't see the mess, see the message. See the message of God's love, which wins the day in the end. If you want the confidence to move forward in times of trouble, see the real thing. See the unseen. May God bless His message.